everyone, Maddie Weiner here. Welcome to What's Treading with Tire Review, presented by AAPEX. I want to come on today because I wanted to share with you a podcast that I was actually on from our sister publication called The Buzz. So sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Hello, and welcome back to the Amped EV podcast. My name is David. I am the editor for The Buzz.
And I'm Maddie Weiner, editor of Tire Review.
Maddie, thank you for being on the show.
Hey, David, I am amped to be here. I'm so excited.
I'm excited too because tires are one of those components that is a major component that you have to keep in mind when you're driving an EV.
Right.
You think, okay, there's not any maintenance you have to do anymore. All that stuff's out the window. Oil changes, forget about them. Tires, though, whole different story. And we are seeing that as you are traveling, you're going all over the place. You're going to dealer meetings. You're going to the manufacturers. You're seeing these tires being made specifically for EVs. So at this point, are you seeing, like, does every tire manufacturer have their own EV tire?
So this is a really good question. And the answer is no, actually. It really depends on how the tire maker is dealing with this. A lot of tire makers, I think right now, are looking at their EV tire line or looking at their tire lines or replacement tire lines and looking at the OE fitments that they do have and tire sizes and seeing, okay, how do we want to handle this? Mm-hmm. You have companies like Hankook that has released their own EV tire and, separate tire lines from, their replacement tires.
Okay.
And then you have companies like Continental who are saying, their tires, their replacement tires right now are, can be fitted on an EV, but it really just depends on what performance the customer is, has
that they need.
Yeah.
They require.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. What they choose as a priority, I guess I should say. So, that could be range, that could be tread life, that could be durability,
sure,
things like that. So, so there's different approaches that are being taken in the tire industry today.
So you're seeing that Continental, for example, is saying, we don't need necessarily this EV designation for you to spec this tire on your EV. You can take any of our tires and any of our lines and put it on your EV, and it's going to work how you need it to, just based on the performance attributes that you're looking for.
So sort of, yeah. So they are saying, like, yes, you can take any of our tires and, put it on an EV, but they're saying that there's performance trade-offs. So if you have, a replacement tire, for example, Continental launched, I think it was 2 years ago, the DWS 06 Plus,
okay,
which is a UHP all-season tire, ultra high performance. Mm-hmm. And that tire, for example, if you put it on a Tesla, I don't know, whatever, they're saying, that will perform. But they do have, and that will perform with, tread wear and durability, traction, all that stuff. But if you want more range out of your tires, they're recommending, dealers suggest that customers go with the OE tire. And they do have, OE tires that, they work with all the OEMs, all the automakers, and, have those sizes and those fitments for those vehicles.
Okay. So there are some manufacturers that have a specific EV designation stamped onto the sidewall of the tire. In Continental's case, you don't necessarily need to look for that, but having that will signify what to the customer?
Yeah, so having that check mark. So Pirelli has sort of an EV, symbol, I guess, on their sidewall. Continental will have an EV check mark. Mm-hmm. And actually, Continental told me that, their executives, that tires, from now on that are being manufactured, replacement tires will have that check mark.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So signifying that, these tires can be put on an EV.
Yeah. Kind of get rid of any confusion that like, can I put these on my EV? I don't know.
Exactly. Okay. So Continental, Pirelli are doing that. But yeah, that's one way to signify to the dealer and to the customer that, yeah, like these tires can be put on an EV and, they can withstand, all the things that, all the ways EVs are different from ICE vehicles.
Interesting. Okay. So this is something that I just, it's a burning question.
Yeah, go for it.
Is the EV designation, is it really just marketing? I mean, do you really need it? Can you really just spec any tire you want on your EV? I mean, what makes it important?
Right. Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And, a lot of dealers I talk to is like, EV's this buzzword in the industry, and some are nervous about it, and some are like, what's going on? Like, I want more info. But EV tires are not a marketing tactic, I would say, from how I see the industry. There are advantages to knowing what tires can be fitted for an EV. And dealers, need to get educated on that. I'm sure you've talked about this on the podcast. EVs are heavier because they have heavier batteries, significantly heavier than ICE vehicles, which impacts the load carrying capacity of a tire.
That makes sense.
Right. So, dealers really need to pay attention to the tire's load carrying capacity, that it matches the vehicle's placard. And, that's determined, all that information is determined by the car maker. So load carrying capacity is the big one.
Okay.
Also tread wear. EVs have pretty much instant torque.
Yeah.
And so, learning about the technology that goes into the tire, how tire makers are working with OEMs, and really looking at tests and what the manufacturer's message is around, that certain tire line, I think is really going to be important for dealers down the line.
So if I am a customer and I choose to put a tire on my EV that maybe it doesn't have the correct load capacity, that is a safety issue at that point, right?
100%. Yeah. Safety issue. I mean, that tire could blow out while you're on the highway. Like, geez, that's crazy. And, the dealer's on the hook for that. It could also lead to just really increased tire wear. I know I was at a conference recently talking to a dealer, and this dealer was telling me, yeah, like this guy is, coming in, a customer to their store every 3 months to replace tires on his EV.
Is that a typical story?
So it is, but it depends on the tires you're using. So I had this conversation with this dealer and said, well, there's, EV tires, like, there's manufacturers that are labeling their tires like for EV use or creating new tire lines for EVs and things like that. And they didn't know that. So that's why, I think there just needs to be more education around, in the aftermarket for not only general repair shops, but tire dealers in particular that, handle a lot of tire work.
Okay. So these dealers, is the proliferation of EVs, more EVs coming into their shop, is this a good thing for these tire dealers, or is this something that tire dealers are worried about? They don't know how to approach. Maybe they don't have the knowledge they need to give the right information to the customer or the right equipment. I mean, is it a good or a bad thing for your average friendly neighborhood tire dealer?
Yeah, no, that's a good question too. I mean, and that's a tough answer because, like I said, some tire dealers are really nervous about this of like, oh, well, what do EVs mean for me?
Yeah.
Other tire dealers are really digging into this technology and working with their, manufacturer partners to see, okay, what technology do you have? What fitments do you have? Sizes, load carrying capacities that can really handle the weight of these vehicles. So I don't think it will, isn't good or bad. Hard to say. It kind of depends on who you are.
Yeah.
But, something that I think I would stress is that, at least for tire dealers, EV tires are not something new that will change the way they sell a tire, right? Like for tire dealers, when you walk into a tire dealership, as a customer, like you want that dealer to ask questions about your driving style, your commute, what performance attributes do you find most important?
Yeah.
So that type of, consultation or conversation with the customer won't change because you're still going to have to know what the customer finds important. And that's no exception with, tires for EVs. So good or bad, I don't know, hard to say, but definitely, something that is just the next evolution for tire dealers.
And that makes sense. I mean, it speaks to your point that you had made earlier where, it's more about what the customer is looking for, what sorts of attributes they are looking to get out of their tires, not necessarily, whether it needs to be that EV stamped tire every time.
Right.
But I mean, if I'm a tire dealer and I'm having a customer come in every 3 months to buy a new set of tires, I think that sounds pretty sweet. I mean, I don't know if that's typical necessarily or not, but I mean, that sounds like a pretty good moneymaker. I don't know.
So yeah, it makes money, but you might not keep the customer, right? And part of the job of the tire dealer is to do what's best, recommend what's best for the customer.
Yeah. If they have a good experience, they're going to keep coming back, just like anything else.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to say, too, about EVs impacting tire shops, and this isn't just tire shops, but general automotive repair shops as well, is, for tire dealers, a lot of dealers in the industry split their business between 50% tires and 50% service. Mm-hmm. So a lot of them do service, whether it's battery replacement or brakes, shocks and struts, things like that, a lot of undercar work. Mm-hmm. And, part of the service is servicing EVs, whether it's, looking at the battery or, ADAS or something like that. So I think that for tire dealers, I think that is a big worry. Yeah. I've talked to a shop in actually multi-location dealer in Fort Wayne, Indiana, McMahon's Best One.
Okay.
And they're creating, an automotive technology center that will dig into these types of topics and figure out, how can our shop get the information from the car manufacturers and the vehicle itself to service these, EVs that'll eventually more and more be coming into the shop.
So. Okay. McMahon's, I think, is a great example of doing this kind of training right. As a tire dealer, do you need access to this sort of training facility, this, a massive training push to be able to service these EVs? Or are you kind of okay where you are? You can, maybe watch some YouTube videos, like what level do you need to be at?
Yeah. A lot of dealers are implementing formalized training. It doesn't have to be in sort of a big scale like an automotive training center for a multi-location dealership. But you have people out there, organizations like the Tire Industry Association, ASE, Garage Gurus is a good one and a big one. That, if a tire dealer is interested, or really a general automotive repair shop, if those owners are interested in training their staffs up on, EV technology and how to service it, that training's out there. Now, I will say some of the right to repair stuff comes into play here because, data from the vehicle, depending on, the manufacturer, might not be available, like the telematics data and stuff. But it also depends on how willing you are to, seek that out and really find out what's available. Yeah. So, I think service is going to be, training on the service side is going to be a huge part. Obviously, training on the tire side as well. Mm-hmm. But really, McMahon's told me, which I thought was interesting, is, training their technicians in EVs is a chance to upskill their workforce. Mm. So, just add to the skills that they already have and maybe attract even, different professions into the industry, like engineers and things like that.
Yeah.
So, training's going to be huge as this technology proliferates, as more people get EVs. Yeah. Right now in rural areas, you're not seeing a lot of EVs because of the range issue, right?
For sure. Yeah.
But, there's a lot of different developments and, infrastructures getting ramped up, which I know you've talked about probably on this podcast.
Yeah, a bit.
yeah, exactly. So that could change. But training's definitely important.
Excellent, excellent. And it makes sense. I mean, as far as being, I mean, that could be a differentiator for you if you have an EV trained staff and your competition doesn't.
Yeah.
You know, as more and more EVs are hitting the roads, that's going to be a difference maker for a lot of people. They're going to know, hey, you service EVs. These other guys I talk to don't, and they're going to be coming to you, you know, for the foreseeable future. So,
exactly. Yeah. And there's a lot of resources out there, and you know, I would encourage, you know, tire dealers, independent automotive repair shops, you know, whomever's interested to like get in touch with vendors or, you know, tire manufacturers and really figure out like what their stance is on EV repairs and, you know, tire recommendations and things like that.
Okay, so I have one last question for you. You had mentioned earlier about consumers maybe needing to buy new tires more often or really be keeping an eye on their tires when they're driving an EV because of that added weight, that added torque, things like that. Are tire dealers concerned that perhaps these consumers, these drivers, might not be keeping up with these new tires, or you know, these not necessarily new tires, but the tires that they're putting on their vehicles because they're not used to it. They're used to having that ICE vehicle where they get a certain amount of mileage from their tires. Now they're not getting that as often. Are they concerned that this might become a safety issue where whether you realize it or not as the driver, you're choosing not to get new tires when?
Right. Yeah, it definitely is a safety issue. And I think right now, because, you know, sort of EV tires and this, you know, technology around them and, you know, the high load capacity, there's right now HL tires that are, you know, being introduced into the market that have higher loads that can handle the weight of the vehicle and also, you know, matching that load carrying capacity with the capacity on the vehicle. You know, those are the points that are really being communicated right now. Mm-hmm. And it is a safety issue. Like dealers need to know that, you know, they got to pay attention to the load. They got to, you know, ask questions to their, you know, customers.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is a safety issue. I think manufacturers are doing what they can right now to educate dealers and their staffs about it, but it really is sort of, you know, the impetus is on that shop to embrace it and figure out, you know, what message is each manufacturer that they're working with, you know, telling them about their tires so that they can, you know, provide that safety and peace of mind to the customer that they have been for years. So,
yeah. And, I mean, safety, it just keeps coming up over and over again with EVs, whether you're talking about the high voltage or, you know, tires. And it's interesting that if you don't have the right training as, you know, either a tire dealer or a general repair shop, things could go south pretty quickly for you.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
So having that training in line, it just makes sense if it's your goal to be ready for these EVs when they come into your shop, you've got to have the right training.
Exactly. 100%. Yeah. And that's the main point, you know, EV tires, you know, what we call EV tires. Mm-hmm. Like we said, there's so many different definitions of them, but they're new to the market, really. I mean, you know, in the aftermarket, you know, we've been seeing EVs for, you know, maybe the last 5 years, you know, maybe a little bit longer, but yeah, this technology is still really new. So there needs to be, you know, awareness needs to be spread around, you know, what to do when one of these vehicles comes into your shop, both on the tire side and on the service side. For sure.
Maddie, thank you for coming in. I really, really appreciate it. This is super interesting.
Thanks. I enjoyed it. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
Hey, you're welcome back anytime.
I'll take you up on it.
Perfect.
Sounds good.
Well, thanks for watching, everybody. We'll catch you next time.